do recognize that it is such short notice, and I know the only time this room does get filled up is when people are passionate about something. And end of story. And whether I don't have anybody ever coming up here, packing this place and saying thank you for doing a great job at the district. It's when there's a decision that impacts a lot of different people, and this is one of them. There's no doubt about that. So I want to just start off and go to why. We will open it up to allow for comments, questions. Some of the things that we learned, that even when people make a comment and somebody makes a comment different than us, we feel less validated or we feel threatened. Let's take down the armor. Let's not feel threatened if somebody has a different opinion. I'm gonna do my best also to model that and not feel offended if you're like, Shane, you're off your rocker and you're completely wrong. At the end of the day, this isn't my decision. This is a school board decision. But as superintendent, I'm at the 10,000 foot, 15,000 foot mark, trying to see a big picture. And that's what I'm going to explain here as we get started. So welcome, and I really do mean it. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. Let me share the screen. Oh, we're good. Our school mission statement is one that anybody can memorize, and I'm proud of it. It has come from a collaboration of teachers. This wasn't me inventing this. My first year coming as superintendent, we had a mission statement that was a paragraph, and nobody knew what it was. It was blah, 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 the whole way through. But West Jefferson, this is something that we're a small school with big opportunities and endless possibilities. And everything that I've tried to do as superintendent is to maintain this, is to drive to this, is to go towards this. I'm not a magician. I can't wave a wand and make everybody march to the beat, but I think people believe in this. We're proud of it. This is something that we're definitely proud of. Right now, the elephant in the room, the big driving question is our current economic situation going to impact our ability to maintain this mission? And maybe it's from your viewpoint or from what you want. When this 10,000 foot mark goes down lower and you start to look at the different things going on in your life, your family level, these things impact you differently. The classroom level, these things impact you differently. Principal level impacts you differently. And so my job, I recognize these things. I try not to turn a blind eye to any of those things and recognize that it won't be perfect. But right now, is our current economic situation gonna impact it? And so here's some of the things that allow us to accomplish this mission. Our school is not too big, but it's not too small. We're in a real sweet spot, and it's a favorable place where people want to come. We have great teachers, and we offer many opportunities and electives that other schools our size cannot offer. We have dual credit, college credit opportunities in a very supportive community. And I know I walk a tight line anytime something like this happens, where people say, I'm not going to support this school anymore because I don't like this decision. I'm not going to support the school. I can't please everybody. I cannot. And I know if I try to make that my goal, I will fail at this position. And so the things I hope we can all unite on is how do we maintain being a small school with big opportunities and then possibilities? The first two are the ones that concern me with the driving question of the economics. So current fuel prices, inflation. Is this something that's big enough right now for us to consider to take a drastic shift to get people on a beautiful day to come down to the boardroom meeting, say, is this really going to be something that will help with that? Approximately 60% of our staff and our teachers are from out of district. Approximately 20% of our students are from out of district. Is the current economic factor, probably not this year, not when school starts right now, but the situation is holding on longer, and I've had a lot of people worried about the situation. And when it comes to retaining our great teachers, that is one thing that I can do from the 10,000 foot mark to maintain that we have great teachers and a great education here. When I sent out an email yesterday to the staff, I want to be transparent with this. Because the timing is so quick, it can give the perception of, holy cow, you're trying to slip this by us. You're trying to go back. I'm going to talk about that a little bit in a second. But if we lose teachers, we can't maintain this mission. 20% of our students are from out of district. Are these students less important, more important than the students that are here? I want to say that they're equal. But if we're looking at losing these students and having our population drop, I would say from a financial standpoint, they're more important. Because if we drop that and we turn into a 1A school, by calculations, we lose 4 to 5 teachers like that and 1 administrator if those students were gone. If those students were gone, what are the programs that go first? Our electives, our elective offerings. Those are the things that go first, and then that destroys our mission on what makes West Jefferson great. We don't have people driving out here to come to a school that only offers math and very few elective offerings. Those are the things that really are, in my mind, as superintendent, when I looked at the last part of the year, some of our teachers and staff that have left, yes, we've had some leave that weren't connected to the 4-day school week. We've had some that said, if you're talking about 4-day school week, maybe I left too early. You look at that, and when I'm trying to compete with Rexburg, when I'm trying to compete with Rigby, Idaho Falls, and bringing people out, it's hard when the gas prices are $5.50 and $6. If gas prices were $1.50, $2 right now, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. But the real economic reason is that's why we're looking at this right now. So proactive or reactive leadership. I know in the board meeting, and I have this right here, I can pull it up and I can say exactly what I said in the June's board meeting to the school board. When we voted on this 2 years ago, I did tell them I don't want to touch this because I don't love to see our community getting fired up and crazy. And when I say crazy, I don't mean crazy. I just mean that I listen to a lot of
cover the craziness.
like listen to a lot of emotion. But I also see it in our staff, and I don't want our staff to have to go through that. But from the 10,000 foot point, if this is going to impact our mission and vision, I have to say something. And that's where I'm looking at proactive or reactive leadership. Do you want a leader that will look at the current situation as we're guiding and say, I think we have a problem coming up here, but I told them we were going straight north, and I need to keep going straight north because that's what I said 2 years ago. And if I veer from that, then I'm a liar. And I'm not holding to my truth. You can't trust me because I'm just going to go right into this storm coming up. That's not the type of leader I am. And if anybody views that as me going back on my word, sure, I can't change that. The reason why I'm doing this is because I do have that concern. It's fair to ask the question, well, why now? Well, we haven't started school yet. If I wait until the middle of the year and it already hurts families, then I didn't do anything. And then when we get to January, February and talk about this, everybody still has the same opinion. It doesn't change anybody's opinion. Whether your opinion right now is whether for a 4-day or not, you're not changing it in January. But the fact is there's an issue going on with it that maybe we can change. And if the school board votes tomorrow and they feel that it's not that big of a deal, we're going to move forward with it. But I have to at least look at this as a proactive leader, say, this is an issue. And I wouldn't be true to who I am if I didn't say, we might need to do something about it. Why does it feel rushed? If it's going to be done, it has to be done now. That does give us enough time to change. And this will lead us into what are the real things of the change? What kind of changes are we talking about? So let's look at the 4-day comparison. I want to go back and forth between these two. And you have these handouts, so everybody can go right to these if you would like to. So what are the differences? Now I'll just read through this and then go over the calendar as what we're thinking. Then I'll open it up. Yeah, just. So contact days, of course, in a 5-day and a 4-day, there will be a difference in in the contact days. Difference between the current calendar, there are 11 blended days. In the proposed potential change, there's 6 blended days. Teacher professional days will maintain at 9 contact days with teachers. 3 of those are on a Friday, 6 of those would be on an afternoon after the blended days, which we'll talk about on the proposal. The start and end time. Right now, the Tarleton campus is 8:10. It was proposed to end at 3:30 for next year. It's a 7-hour and 20-minute day. Start time would be 8 to 3:56 for the secondary and 3:50 for the elementary on the Tarleton campus. 7 hours and 50 minutes or 7 hours and 56. Hamer campus, you can see that it would go, the end time would be 2:45 to 3:15. It's the same start time. First and last day of school, exactly the same. It wouldn't impact when teachers come back. It doesn't impact when people are already planning to be here. The hybrid calendar and that we currently have, the 5-day hybrid calendar, has 20 weeks that are 5-day, 12 weeks that are 4-day, 2 3-days, and 2 2-days. The 4-day proposal is 3 5-days, 31 4-days, 1 3-day, 1 2-day. Teacher contract days, we took the hours from that were given to in a contract here and split it out over 158 days to have actually 2 less. And so I guess you could say we're paying the teachers the same amount for 2 hours less of work on this one. The work day would go from 8 hours to 9 hours. In the I don't know if that's, how's that work, Carrie?
Oh,
That's better right there, isn't it? So when we look at this and look at the 2 options, start time and end time. So on the left side that you see right there, that would be the one that's currently proposed. If the board votes tomorrow that they want to maintain and stay with the current one, this is what our calendar will be. If they feel like there's an economic need and want to provide that support to families, this is the option that they would choose. The start and end time are the same. You can see that the September almost looks exactly the same as it would in either calendar. We would go 4 days the week of Labor Day, and we would go 5 days the week of homecoming. And it was just a coincidence this week that that's where it landed, but that would be something that would happen. In the current calendar, we have a blended day on the 21st and a parent-teacher conference on the 22nd. The comparison to that would be 2 days later, you would have Friday with no school and then 2 weeks of harvest, and that jumps over to the October change. In our current schedule, we will be coming back to school on Thursday and Friday, whereas with the proposed calendar, it's 2 full weeks of harvest. I do want to make a comment about harvest break, going back to the subject of how do we trust you. If you're going to be proactive and looking at problems and making suggestions, I don't see how harvest hurts our mission statement. Small school, big opportunities, endless possibilities. I know it was something that was discussed my first year. It wasn't me leading that discussion. It was board members that asked me to talk to community members about that. When we look at small school, big opportunities, what great opportunity it is for kids to work at harvest. I know that you're going to say, well, what about the academic impact on it? We're going to get mired down in the weeds with the same argument between 4-day and 5-day and academics. You know, it's like people have a hard time sometimes going, we want a 5-day, but we like a 2-day break right when we start. we can't have everything that we want. But when it looks like it, you look at school is not just us teaching academics. It's our community. And harvest is something that's important to our community. Even though some families, it's hard on. I don't have any intention, and again, you're like, okay, it's just words. But if I'm staying true to the mission statement, a small school, big opportunities and responsibilities, harvest can support that more towards that. Harvest is actually, I think, a better schedule on the 4-day compared to the current year. When we get into October, this is where it might be easier for, can't really see, I think you guys have it all in front of you. That's where the Fridays are off for students. And the black days are days that staff would not come in. They're not required to come in on those days. That's where the relief would be for those that travel, would be able to have that. We know that teachers, I'm married to a teacher, she's probably going to be here a lot of times preparing things for the kids on that. That's their choice. But there's a lot of different things, and I don't want to get into the pros and cons of this is why you should do it, this is why you should do it, this is why it's going to benefit these guys. It's not fair if it's benefiting these guys. We're looking at the potential of people saying, I did drive there for that year when it was $5 gas. I'm not ever going to do that again. And as soon as maybe it will drop back down to $3, but as soon as it starts going up, our teachers are shopping just like that. That's my concern. Parent-teacher conference would be later. It'd be the 4th. I tried to pick a time. I don't love doing them on Fridays, but this is a time when there is not going to be any basketball or volleyball. It's between seasons. Hopefully our football team plays that evening somewhere, but it allows us to be able to have a parent-teacher conference. The end of the try would be the 22nd. This would be a difference where there's a blended day and a teacher work day on the current year's calendar. I recognize that might impact somebody's calendar schedule. When you get into December, and I'm not sure, this way, I'll go down a little bit. It doesn't scroll because it's December. The Fridays would be off. Last day's the 21st. It goes into the Christmas break. January would be a 4-day week. Same as the other schedule. January does look a little bit different, where we don't have the teacher professional day, but we do have the blended. The plan right now for the blended would be to invite those that need to come. Those that want to come are welcome to come. It'd be 8 to 1 o'clock. Afternoon would be a professional development time with teachers. That's what the trade-off with. When you look at this calendar over here, we have the 9 teal days. Those are teacher professional days. We have now 1 per trimester with an afternoon collaboration time on that. Moving into February, again, it would be those that are traveling. Do not come on Fridays. We would have to come to school on President's Day, which is different than what we've done. End of the try would be the 2nd, and then the teacher work day on the 3rd after the 2nd trimester. The current calendar has 2 weeks. It would be almost identical between both calendars. When the board asked me to look at this initially, I did put those 2 Fridays as no school days and had us coming to school 2 days during spring break. Didn't make sense. I'm trying to figure out, we'd probably have more people miss on the 21st than I would come on the Friday. So we're coming on the Fridays if that's what the board votes on. The rest of the school year would be a pure 4-day school week, with the exception of teachers coming in on the 28th, our 2 blended days. Seniors' last day is the 24th. Everybody else's last day is the 26th, with a teacher work day on the 26th. So I've had a chance to share my thoughts, share the why behind it, what's driving this. Like I said, if I didn't have people coming and talking to me and being concerned, if I didn't see teachers who were leaving, if I didn't see that there was not going to be relief in the front, we wouldn't have this conversation. But I guess I'm going to open up to questions and concerns. And I know I'm not sure even how to do this because each of us is coming from a different spot. But I do want to hear your concerns or your thoughts. And it's not really like a vote, like, all right, we're sitting here and like this section here is, you know, one way, this section here is another way. Thoughts. So Emily, thanks.
Question about the four-day schedule. They're on Mondays. Can you go over again what the goal is with the blended day? Like as you reviewed it, how it's worked. Because they're on Fridays now.
They have been on Fridays.
The schedule right now is for Fridays.
You know, we could move it to a different day. And so a couple of the reasons, the thought behind going to the day, but I'm not stuck on it having to be Monday. I could be convinced a different way. The blended day, the feedback that I have is people either really love it or they really hate it. It's one or the other. And I think it's the mindset you take going into it. If you were skeptical about it going in and don't really know why they're having it, people have been disillusioned with it.
Do you have data about how it's going?
So the empirical data that I have from the teachers that have students there, overwhelmingly, when we surveyed our teachers, and I can pull it up, I don't want to give the exact number, but it was literally 2 or 3 teachers on that said they didn't like it. Now maybe you've talked with people, maybe they didn't answer the survey, but if people were able to get the kids there, because part of it goes both ways. And it was a learning year with it, but those teachers that utilized it, invited the kids there, the kids were there. Feedback there was very overwhelmingly positive for it.
And did you see an improvement for this?
We saw an improvement. Is it okay if I have Amanda talk on her experience with that? Chris, you're here, you can share your experience, and it could be opposite of Amanda's.
I was looking for like a district-wide, how did it go, like the 10,000 foot.
From the district-wide, from hearing the feedback from the teachers, overwhelmingly positive.
And the students as well felt that it was a positive experience for them.
The students that went,
Yeah, because a lot of students didn't go.
they didn't want it,
There were students that didn't go, that weren't invited, that weren't asked to come.
and they went still.
Specifically, right, and there were some that didn't go because they weren't asked, and so I just wondered for the ones that you were focusing on, using that small group time, what was the data behind the results of that day?
What was your experience, Amanda? And then like, there's other teachers here, Naomi, you're here as well, Jill.
So, experience in the junior high is overwhelming. Honestly, the biggest frustration was students who were invited. These families didn't prioritize that as important, that repeatedly didn't come when invited. And so I actually like this idea of putting it on Monday because I think that we will maybe pick up some of those students, because Friday in general is this day that a lot of people miss. Like even if we have school on Friday, I just know when I'm planning that I'm probably not going to have everyone, because you have weddings, you have people leaving early to go to sporting events and things like that. I will tell you, some of the students I felt the most concern for repeatedly showed up and said, I just love this so much because it's just calmer. I can get to the teacher. Because a lot of times the people that are getting to the teachers during a regular school day are the kids who don't need the teachers, that are doing really well. They just are pushing themselves, trying to get, higher and higher and higher. They already know what they need to know. And it's those kids that are less confident because they don't always understand things. They don't want to be like, hey, I still don't get this in classrooms. And so they become a silent group of people that need help when the kids that are more confident. They are advocating for themselves. They're always answering the questions and stuff, and we do as much as we can to mitigate that in the classroom and vary things. But so many kids said that. In fact, in my debate class, a lot of kids wrote bills. I let them write them on whatever matters to them. We had like 7 kids write bills on a 4-day school week this year. And it was really interesting to hear the perspectives of those students. But a couple of kids that several times amendments were made to drop the blended learning day and just make it a true 4-day school week. And the kids that benefited from it argued, no, please don't get rid of those. Even though we aren't actually making policy, they get real, and so, but they get real passionate about it. But yeah, there were some of those kids who were like, I appreciate those days so much. Like, if we do a 4-day school week, we still got to keep that. And some kids who don't use it or need it were like, well, we got to be grown-ups and we got to like be responsible and take care of our own business. And I'm like, that's easy to say when you don't struggle with reading, or you don't, have problems with ADHD. It's easy to say when these are not struggles that you face, but these kids that are coming on Blended Learning Day are expressing to us as teachers how much they appreciate it. There were some that really could have used it that still didn't come and we would talk to the parents and beg and plead and ask them, they still wouldn't come. But for the kids that came, it was absolutely, in my opinion, and in my classroom, and actually we like to call ourselves Core 4 in the junior high. The Core 4 all saw students progress, just having an easier access to students and a calmer work environment. It was real, that was my experience.
There's any other teacher that wants to share their experience on 4-day, because maybe it was a train wreck for you. I don't know. I'm blended. I think what it comes down to is it's a change of mindset of how you use the time on that.
So when you put that in a 4-day, I'm wondering about now the kids have a 4-day weekend. Are the teachers worried about learning loss over the longer, because every single month there's one of those? Is that going to slow momentum for the classroom?
Christy?
I wasn't going to say anything, I just wanted to listen, but I am a little shocked at, I'm not shocked that the 4-day came up again. I'm a little shocked at the loss, if you really count, including the blended day, carried over to another day. I'm not opposed to the blended day. I do think for high school kids, the majority view it as a catch-up day. And sometimes those kids need it. They're very, very busy. And it does allow us to help some kids. But for me, the most part, it was catch-up. And that's okay. Like, maybe they need that because they are extremely busy. What concerns me is if you count those days, which are not instruction days, and the 4-day days, it's 33 days of loss of actual instruction in class. And that's close to 2 months of instruction, not helping, and the 4-day. And I was in shock when I saw this calendar. It's worse than a 4-day week, in my personal opinion, because the blended day has been moved. And I feel like, I don't want to say it's inevitable because I always hold out hope, but I do feel it's inevitable. But adding that blended day, there's weeks of just 3 days of instruction. And that is a concern to me as a teacher. With having dual credit, like my kids are going to have to do more homework, and they're not going to have the instruction that we can give them. I'm contracted through the places that I do to maintain their curriculum. I know that our math is in the same department. I don't want to speak for the teacher that's not here, but I do know there's similar feelings. And you might say, well, that's a smaller population and that's something that's easily gotten rid of. But I can't help but ask myself, did we consider other things before we consider cutting education to help families out? Like maybe, and even our bus and our diesel and our gas. We never bring up sports or the extracurricular, we've always put education on the chopping block to help this stuff out. I mean, there's parents driving their kids everywhere all summer, and I'm not gonna critique that on a personal level, teachers included, but when it comes to, you know, what we're gonna lose by this, I just still really struggle. And again, I'm not opposed to the blended day. I saw that it did help. There's things that definitely need to be addressed, but we're even lessening the time of the blended day now and just making it till 1 o'clock, which might be a good thing for our older kids. But to put it on a whole other day, I was just kind of in shock. Like,
If it was on a Friday, would that change it for you?
well,
Like,
it's
it's-
never changed my feelings
Well,
about
I know
4 day
that.
week,
I get
but
that.
it does lessen the loss of instruction time that we have.
No, I totally get that, the other side, right? And I see, Jimmy, you're saying.
Yeah,
that-
especially if you have students that, they didn't come to the blended learning. And so I'm feeling like we're forgetting about them. I had a student doing dual credit, and in order to get all of the curriculum in, it was a push for them. It was really a push for them, like more than normal years. And so that's hard for them. And when I kind of did what Christy did, when I looked at this, I was like, okay, where are we as far as instructional days lost? And I came up with a different amount. I came up with 31. And I counted the blended learning days as, if you leave them so that we have basically 3-day weeks, then 31 days. Difference from 2019, so before COVID. So my youngest is getting almost a month and a half less of schooling than my older kids did. Now, how's that going to prepare him for college? That's my concern, because adding a couple minutes per day is not the same. It is not the same as a month and a half of learning. I'm not opposed to the 4-day week. I am opposed to this calendar.
And that's a fair point. So as I'm listening,
And
like, there's nothing, like I said, this could be tweaked, like if we can find that.
And that's where I feel like this being rushed is a
Well-
problem. And this is why, because I feel like there's so many things that we need to look at. Like, okay, so tweak it. So we tweak it, that takes it another week. You're going to be approving a calendar a week before school starts by the time, you know what I mean? My other question is, I don't know anybody on a 4-day week that's not on a semester. So then,
Black phrase.
okay, one out of,
Most.
do you know what I'm saying? Most of
most
them
are
go
on
to semesters. And so if we're going to do it, I just want to do it right. If we're going to go to a 4-day week, do it right. Let's set it up to be successful. That's all I'm asking.
And that's a fair point. Like, it really is. I would prefer to do it exactly like Jimmy is saying. I would prefer to sit back and say, okay, let's take this. Go back to the driving question that we had, and some of the dance moms have come in a little bit later, sorry. The driving question at the beginning is our current economic situation necessary for now? And if that's what the board has to decide tomorrow with it.
Shane.
But if they do feel like it needs to go to a 4-day, we could relook at this. I could go through another one where we throw these blendeds on the Friday. What that does do is it takes away some of that goal of providing the relief. There might be a balance. And I have a couple of hands popping up. We'll get going Emily first, and then we'll go Jill.
Bill is down 40 cents in a month. So we don't know where this is going. So it's hard to shoot for that.
Fair, fair. Jill.
I just wanted to say that I know quality learning
Is the beginning of everything.
is the beginning portion of every day. That's like quality learning. So tacking on extra time doesn't make any difference. That's, when I looked at that calendar, I was in shock too. I'm like, there's 31 quality instruction teaching days.
Somebody was raising.
Okay, so I know that it's inevitable we go to a 4-day school week, and I'm not completely opposed to it.
The problem I'm seeing as a sub and as a mom is the discipline in the kids. It's not that they don't have discipline, it's not that they don't self-discipline, it's that they prefer not to self-regulate. I don't love the blended days, maybe because my kids get sent home with busy work as a packet that they do on those days. It drives them nuts. Because they're like, Mom, we can go to school. So I sent my fourth grader to school on blended learning day. And it was a so sit around and do not much day for her. She's one of those that is the pusher. She wants to continue to excel. And she struggles because she can sit in her classroom and be listening to her teacher, and there's I don't know how many other kids sitting there going, bouncing around, bebopping, and the teacher has to repeat herself X number of times to get the point across. And then the kids will still come ask the question, well, what do we do now? Because we gave the instructions and the kids didn't listen. And then those that were listening have to listen to the instructions again and again. My child that's in 6th grade has a problem with that as well, because he was taught in my home that we listen, we do as we're asked, and we follow the instructions, and their classes are all the same. As a sub, I know the kids are going to push you a little more because they want to see how far they can get. But when you're trying to do what the teachers ask, it's hard because they're going to ask you to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it because they're not paying attention and they're not listening. So you've got your days, but how many times are you going to repeat that instruction? And yeah, the kids that are listening, they're going to get it. And the kids that aren't listening or have a hard time focusing, you're going to have to repeat it for them. But school is not a joy to my kids anymore. I have one that loves to read and loves to work on schoolwork and all of that. And because they've chosen to listen to the teacher the first times, the extra having to remind the kids is hard for them. It makes their joy in school less. And the blended days, they feel it's just like a punishment day almost. They get a packet of monotonous work that they do because they have to, and otherwise they get counted absent. So there was a lot of play days in the last year that could have been not play days. And my kids get counted absent if they don't want to go to those because they're not, so that's one of my concerns is that are the kids actually going to buckle down and do the work if we go to a 4-day school week, or are they just going to be the same as they have been and waste that extra 4 minutes in each class if you're in the higher or in the secondary school? Are they going to waste that extra 4 minutes or extra 20 minutes in the day? Because I know a lot of the younger kids, they check out about, and I'm stretching at this, but they check out about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So that extra 20 minutes on the end of the day is just 20 minutes more checkout. Does that make sense? So when I see this and I see the blended days on Mondays, those don't count as school days to me. They're not instruction days. They're days where my kids will probably be home, because even if they're struggling in school, I push them to get their work done and not struggle, and I said help them with anything they ask at home. And those days I can see being very beneficial in the older days. But for my younger kids, they're just the day that they have that, so they're not really instruction.
So from this blended days, I'm hearing that blended days, if the board does go to a 4-day school week, is a potential problem. And if we look at that and have it offered differently, I know that's not going to solve the whole thing against whether they go or not, but I think that's a valid point that we can look at to say, let's look at the timing of that. So Jimmy and then Shay or something.
Well, I just wanted to kind of expand. I subbed one day on a blended learning day. And it happened to be a high school class and it was full. And I said, are you serious? There's all of you guys do not have your work done? You know, my boys would have loved that, the opportunity to get things done. And I'm not joking. One student looked at me and said, well, I can do nothing all week and come in and catch it up today. And they were all like, yeah. And that's why they were there. And
That's
what
sad.
did we just teach them?
That is sad.
You know, and
And
so
there-
that's when I really
It's
started looking at the
so
blended
that's something
learning.
that definitely, that's a teacher issue. That's a student issue. That's a culture issue.
Well, I feel like it's a culture issue because I don't
And
think that the teacher, it was only one of her whole day of classes. So it was a certain class that they had,
Figured it out.
and
They
you
figured that
can't
out.
make them, you can't make them. I was teaching in another class and I'm like, what are you doing? Well, I'll just catch up on Friday. I'll just catch up on Friday. So they're smart. They figure things out, just like they use parents against each other. You know, they figured this out already.
Parents too.
They figured this out already.
Katie, do you want to say something?
I just want to say quick about blended days. They are valuable if they're used correctly. And this last year was a learning curve, like trying to figure out what to do, how to do it. I think there's great potential. Teachers and students just need to learn how to do it.
Candace,
I'm getting echoes from this man.
well, I see that. I look at who's behind you and it doesn't surprise me one bit. And thank you for sitting behind Candace so you can heckle her and not me.
So I just have one question. The motivator for this is the inflation and the gas and diesel prices.
Yeah.
Has anyone done any research into any grants or ways to mitigate that versus just changing up the whole calendar?
Calendars are the only thing.
Even the state, from the state stipend something, is there something through there?
They don't have anything immediate with that.
So there's nothing as far as
And
grants for rural.
Grants would be something that, if that was the case, how many rural school districts are already on a 4-day school week? Or for that same reason going forward. But I don't know of any grants. I've never heard of anybody getting a grant. There could be though, the potential of having a 20th century grant that could allow, a 20th century grant is an after school or an out of school schedule grant. That is something that I've looked at before, but where we were already staying until 3:30, 3:50, I didn't think that it would be a grant that a lot of people, like, same reason, say, I don't want to stay later. A 20th century grant could be looked at to have activities on Fridays. I haven't explored that yet because our current schedule makes it a little bit difficult to do that. And so, but from the state, Chad, there's nothing else except the main formula that they do. And so it's up to us to decide how to take what they get and make adjustments to that. So keep going, Candace. I'll follow
And then
up.
I just have one more comment, just for just to digest. We're by far the furthest out. We live almost 20 miles from the school. And our little boy gets up at 6 and gets on the bus at 6:45. And he gets home at 4:30. He's gone from our home more than most people are gone to their jobs, adults. So if you add this extra time every day, he's going to be getting up at earlier. They're not allowed to eat on the bus. So when am I going to feed him, get his homework done, bathe him? And that doesn't even include anything extra. And I mean, there's people that come from Howe, as Mott, Roberts.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are people further out in Hamer than us that are still in Jefferson County. We're the second stop and we are in Jefferson County. So I just want that to be noted
And it is.
because that's a hard day for a little kid.
Speak to the, so we came from a 4-day district and
I love it. I'm pro 4-day, let's do it. But we are, the house we were renting actually sold, so we actually moved to Hamer, and we wanted to keep our kids going over there because we were trying to buy this house. But anyway, that doesn't matter. But my daughter, who got cancer for the first time at the age of 4, right before she turned 5, she battled it for 6 months, came back. She ended up being held back a year because she was fighting cancer again. So, I mean, when she started kindergarten, she had just finished chemo for the second time just months prior, like hair, just little stubble growing in. And we were taking our kids from Hamer to Howe to go to school. So a good drive, like a long drive. And so, I mean, and she did it, and she did her kindergarten year, full day kindergarten, 4 days, and she thrived. She loved school. She just did it, and it wasn't this huge hardship. And if it was going to be hard on anybody, it would be hard on her. Like, her little body had been beaten down to, I can't even describe what else and she was fine. She did it. She got up every morning, went to school, loved school, did well in school, and came home, and she did great. And so, I mean, she did it. Everybody, I think, do it and be okay.
We'll go Cheryl and then.
Sorry, I'm on the back row, so I can't see. On the blended day, back to that subject, Mr. Bird, and I'm gonna speak in his behalf, and please tell me his wife did him.
Oh boy. It's being recorded, Cheryl.
In his mouth.
Think twice.
But, yeah, I know, right? Just like a neighbor. I mean, we're the oldest faculty members in the school district, and we've been here for quite some time. He's going on, I believe this is his 42nd year of teaching school. Doesn't make him the best professional teacher in the world, but anyway, just saying that. Blended day for him became a situation as an elective teacher, not a board teacher, an elective teacher. Blended day became a situation where he would invite students in, put them on the record, and the students would not show up. Okay, either they sometimes stay longer in a core class of another teacher, or they just pure and simply by 11 o'clock decided they were going home, and then we're not going to come into this room and do their assignments. Well, you can't take a welding assignment home very easy. It takes hands-on, arms on the welders and so forth. He got to the point at the end of the school year, I believe for the last 3 blended days that we had, he just told the students every Thursday, you know who you are, you know you are the students that are behind, you know that. If you want to catch up, I will be here on Friday. I will help you. I will come in early. He goes in at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'll be here to help you. Very few of the students really came in. They just took whatever grade they got from their welds and their farm business classes and so forth. Everybody has a story about a 4-day school week, and I'm going to tell you guys this one. Bear Lake County is on a 4-day school week. They are also on an AB schedule. So now you see your students every other day. You're missing a lot. Just kind of figure through it. The teachers had to make a consensus with the families in the community that they would not send homework home. Talk about your kids driving a distance to school. Geneva, which is over the mountain, is 40 some odd miles away from the Bear Lake School District. They shut their little grade school down because it was so old and dilapidated. They shut the building down and they bused the kids into Montpelier to school. A 40-minute ride every day. Their kids get on the bus right around 6 o'clock in the morning in order to be to school and then go back. Attendance became a really big thing for the school district as well. But because those kids were going over the hill and coming to school, they asked the teachers, please get done in the day with everything we can so that we are not having our children come home at 6 o'clock at night. And up in that little country is dairy farms and stuff and hay fields and stuff like that. It's very rural like that. Kids were having to go home and help milk cows and feed calves and do other things like that in that sense. So they're up till 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, just doing chores and helping with the family things, which Friday gives them extra family time and extra time to do that kind of stuff. However, the teachers try really hard not to send homework home to any of the students if they can. I mean, inevitably students are going to have homework and take care of things at home because they do get behind. Kids are lollygagging and do get behind. Back to the attendance part of it, if your kid, I don't know what their allowable days to miss are, which is probably very similar to ours, like 5 days a trimester. That's because that's a state 90% attendance rule. In order to receive credit in a class, you have to be in attendance that amount of time. That's what the basis is to our school district on our attendance. It isn't because we want kids to only miss 5 days or anything like that. It's based on a state law. Can't remember what code it is. There is a code about it too. So anyway, just going to that. The students over there that became excessively absent from school had to attend Saturday school. They also had to pay, their family had to pay $25 for Saturday school, and your kid better be there. It was that kind of a thing. And they used Saturday school to get caught up. That $25 went to pay for the staff member that had to be there to help, because it's supposed to be a certified staff person that's there for that. You can't make up the attendance and get your money back from the state, but at least the county and the school did not have to pay out unnecessarily. So everybody has a story about it. And I was looking, there's 150 school districts in Idaho, and I think 50 charter schools. Of that, nearly half are on a 4-day school week. Is it hurting education? There's probably so for some, but it can't be that bad if that many are doing it. You know, it's just kind of my opinion.
Lisa was next.
So mine's on a whole different area, you guys. You all know that I'm just. My concern really falls in, I drive over 30 miles one way in my daughter. And they do drive their kids very good. Actually, I'm in school, but I think. So with that said, they can go to 2 boys really easy, and a lot of people probably don't care if they do or whatever, you know, it's more accessible for them, but they choose here because they feel like the quality is. The other part of that is my employees just recently got a pay raise which is very well deserved. They work so hard, they do not hardly make anything. And I know Christy talked about for that. She came and did some work for us. My concern is if we're going to go to a 4-day this schedule, I would prefer to do it now, because you go do that next year, and I know we want to do it right. So if we can readjust this and get it right, I'm not for that, because if you do it next year, they're already going to lose their raise driving to work today, not because any of us have control of that, because it's fuel prices, the economy. But if we do it next year, and they're going to notice them, you know, it's going to be a big cut to them. Whereas if we just start doing it this year, you know, they haven't got a check. This will be the norm for them. So I feel like if we go to do this next year, they're going to feel like they got to pay that, you know, and even though they didn't, I don't know if you can understand that.
But they'll be down 1 day of work. So that's a pay cut, isn't it?
Well, I don't, but I think we'll leave it out there, is what I'm saying. If you go 5 days now, and then you go to 4, that's definitely a pay cut. That's what I'm trying
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So, and I think they're super important as anybody else in the district. I feel like they worked so hard, and they were so excited about this, and I'm just afraid, you know, we're going to lose people. I think we're going to lose a lot of teachers at $5 a gallon too.
So can I ask a question, because I know that this has come up as I've talked to a few board members. They considered some kind of a stipend to help out, and then there's like, where do you get that money? So 2 questions. Obviously, we have 2 teachers that left that I don't think were because of a 4-day.
Those two
And
were
that-
not, those two were not.
And we didn't hire for them. So there's those 2 salaries. We also, and I know, and I don't know if I can say this, but we saved the school a lot of money that they're gonna get from the state because of how we chose the insurance that came out in our
So let me explain.
teacher. So, and that money though, you can, but that money, according to what I understood, was for your discretion to use the way you wanted. And we chose that to save the district money. And it's a lot of money that the state's giving you that's well enough to help maybe give a stipend to encourage teachers to say, hey, we know right now. So, my issue, like I said, that, you're proactive, reactive, I get it, but doing this right now is chaotic, it's confusing, it's rushed. There's so many things that haven't been considered. And I just feel like the time that's needed to make sure that this is really what we want to do, because you're already saying, well, maybe I'll change the blended date. Maybe this, and so I just struggle that this is rushed for a reason that could probably be addressed and fixed. If gas prices go down, you could say, then we're taking this away. I don't know, like, I just think there's ways to off-end people leaving. And, our district goes above and beyond the state pay scale, which is an attractive draw for teachers to come here. And I just think there's multiple ways that we just haven't considered. And I'm always really concerned that education is the first thing that we start chopping before we look at other things. And that to me is, because there's creative ways to deal with this. Like she was trying to say, it wasn't just her kid, it was teachers, and are there grants that could, but there's money that we made available by our vote in our teachers union for the district. And according to what we were told, that could be used in a wide variety of ways.
Let me speak on that directly. So you're subtracting some of our teachers that left, and you said we didn't replace them. I'm looking at from the district level, FTE wise, they've been replaced because some of the teachers that were in elementary school have moved up to take the different roles and responsibilities. What happens is if when you look at like programs and things and say, can we tighten and do what we do? I need to always look for something. But anytime you put money into a salary, it's gone quickly out of the budget, and it's a long-term thing. Insurance thing, you said we voted to make sure that we save a lot of money. I put that into classified employees. It's being used. It's not just sitting in a fund. We gave considerable amount of raises to our classified and our bus drivers.
That's awesome, but they're gonna get a cut now.
And
So in essence, it was a waste.
not always with that. So when you say they get a cut,
21 days.
the hours that one of our paraprofessionals work will now increase in a day. So instead of working 6 hours a day, they work 7 hours a day. And we can look and balance that out. As we talk to some people, they say they would rather have some days off because they're also paying for childcare. So when we're looking at some of our classified staff that's coming and working here, and they're working for the least amount, some of them are paying for childcare so they can come and do this. So heaven forbid how that math works out. Like it balances it out in a way. Like again, I'm not trying to argue for that, but when you're saying from the money standpoint, we should have all this extra money just lying around to give people raises for that. I think with our supplemental levy, where we are able to pay above and beyond the pay scale, it made it hard for some of our teachers who did leave the district. But those are going to get wiped out with the going back to my main statement. Those are going to be wiped out by the inflation and the high gas prices. If they go down, then it doesn't matter and it goes back. But then I'm back to the same situation at the beginning that I talked about. The whole reason why I'm bringing this back up is if this impacts our ability to keep and retain teachers here, then what are we gonna do about that? It's like, where are you gonna hit the education process? You keep saying we're chopping the education process, but we could say we're chopping the education process by not adjusting our calendar, so we can't hire people to come.
Well, when I did the math for 14, because that's what I thought it was gonna be, to me, that's 3 weeks' time of school. And I thought, okay, 3 weeks for me for gas to drive here. And I've chosen to buy a car that costs more to fill up. I spend about 120 to fill up. That's $360 that I'm out for 14. So add another 120, that's $480 that I'm spending more than I would spend if I was doing my regular job. I don't carpool. I drive a lot outside of that. My kids go to private lessons. But that's a personal choice that I've made. And so we're cutting like 21 days for $480 per person. That's assuming they have a car that costs a little bit more to fill up. And I really struggle with that. If that's our only motive is, because that's what we're saying, the only reason we're looking at this is because of inflation and gas prices for teachers who drive. So I did the math myself, and you know, I don't drive outrageously far as a teacher, but I also don't live really close either. So, you know, add in a little bit more, they probably, again, depending on the kind of car they drive, you know, that could be maybe $1,000. I can spend $300 going to the movies with my family on a weekend and I don't bat an eye, but when it comes to going to school, I'm gonna get upset about that. I can go on a family vacation in the summer and then I'm gonna I can send my kids that live out of district to all of the sports things all summer, but then I'm not gonna bring them when I have to pay a little bit more to come for school. I really struggle with that. And I just don't think it's the best motive.
I just have one more comment,
One more?
because, just one more. My daughter-in-law teaches at Clark County, they're 4-day-a-week, y'all know that. And I don't have students, but I have grandkids, and they're more important than my kids are. But anyway, with that said, she really loves the 4-day week. I thought she would have been a great teacher here. I think she liked the 4-day week, so she went there. So this is just something to say for 4 days. Her kids coming out of first grade, literally, and you could check it out, they are at almost a 3rd grade level because of the work she does in class when she's with those kids. Their parents are coming and commenting and saying how wonderful and thanking her. And, so I think a lot of it has to do what goes on in that classroom and what they put into it so those students do learn. And so I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm trying to say in a positive way. It works. And so, I think that's something to look forward to too. So.
Mindy and then Liz, and then let's have a look. So I come here and Liz real quick.
I've raised it 10 times, but. Yeah.
I think it's my camo shirt.
Maybe I'm putting you on pause. Liz is first.
Okay, so I just wanted to kind of say something along with what some of these others have said. So we're shortening our day. We're shortening our week, increasing the time. It's all about money. So let's think about like with sports, and you have muscle memory. So we practice every day so we can get better at that sport. Reading, same thing, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade. They need that reading every day. And we're paying the teachers to provide that. So if we compare those two and we say, well, we can just increase the time and we're going to cover the same thing. So does that mean we can just increase our sports practices by 15 minutes and then when we don't have school? Well, let's not practice Friday. Oh, it's a blended day. Let's not practice Monday. Because we have a lot of out-of-district people coming and spending money. We have out-of-district coaches that come in and coach. So if we're doing it all about the money, then why don't we take off those days as well for the sports?
If it has my people on YouTube to use a microphone, they can't hear everybody, so.
Lexi, since you're standing up, it's just first on the microphone. I know, yes.
I was waiting for the microphone to come out.
So who's next?
Mr. Johnson, did you want to have? It's not working?
Is it working?
No.
Yes or no? Yeah, it's working.
No.
Anything?
We're on.
You guys, it is worth talking to it. Hold on.
Okay,
Oh, we can do
um,
that.
so Lisa, I love your comment.
Can
I
we-
don't-
Can we turn the fans off? Is we're not gonna keep everybody out.
It feels like a bad life choice.
I know. Worse,
Get
worse.
out of here quicker.
A bad life choice worse than this conversation. All right. Okay, let's try that.
Okay, so I had, like, to go with Lisa's comment, I love that they're getting these kids on a 40 school week in Clark County to like these higher levels and that kind of stuff. But one thing that affects that people don't see, and I saw this with my one of my middle children, I sent them to a different preschool that had smaller class sizes, is that a smaller class size really affects how much you get to each kid. And Clark County has a little bit smaller class sizes. So that helps. Not saying that a 4-day school week wouldn't help, but having 20 or more kids in a class makes a difference too.
Here comes the microphone to Lexi in the back. This is perfect.
That's true, yeah. I was just gonna say that, I really don't mind the idea of a 40 school week when I'm looking at the calendar. I did have a question about, like sporting events with a longer day. I had heard like a rumor that that last hour could be converted into part of their practice hours, which I thought that was a good idea, because then it kind of, when there's not practicing later, you know, if that was a concern, you know, then they go to practice after school and they're gonna come even later. And so I thought that was kind of a nice option for kids doing sports to use that extra, like, that last hour as part of their practice time. I also like the idea of maybe, like with the blended days on Monday. I know that my kids love going to blended days. They would go every time, whether they were invited or not. Because Layla didn't want to do all the work that was at home. And so it was like, so I actually kind of agree that I think those blended days, I'm not sure how like hugely beneficial they were, but my kids loved them. They thought they were awesome. And they went every time. But I just like, I wasn't there, so I don't know like what the learning process entailed with those. So it does make the calendar look a little short, like during those weeks where there are those blended days. But again, I like the 4-day too. So I like the 4-day. The blended days make me a little nervous, and I like the idea of being able to tack on some practice time for the sporting events on that longer day as part of their day.
Thank you.
Hey Shane, I have a question.
Yeah.
Just to kind of ask about Christie's comment about we're lacking 33 days from going from the 4-day to the 4-day, right? Is that 31 or 33?
What are we getting?
Somewhere around
Are you
there.
asking the 33? Where are
And
we
can
at
I
now?
clarify, they're making it up in minutes at the end of the day. But in my personal opinion, 5 minutes at the end of the day does not make up a lost class hour.
Yeah, and I
There's a
agree with
big
that.
difference. So that's
And
why
I
I
agree
say,
with that. Then I
the time's
also,
gonna be made up.
I wanted to ask some of the teachers here in respects to, it looks like they split harvest break in between the beginning and the end of the quarter, right? Or trimester. Looks like there's
6
about,
weeks.
but there's like, how many days is there before harvest break, when school starts, actual learning days? Was there 20? Anyway, it looks like it's kind of in the middle. And I just wanted to ask the teachers, it looks like the kids are in for about 3 weeks, and then they have a 2-week break, and then they're back in for about 3 more weeks before the tri-ends. And how does that affect the learning? I mean, because my point is, we're already going 30 days shorter of actual, not shorter time, but like what Christie's talking about.
Contact.
You
Contact.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And flesh are blended and whatever that means. And then we shove in a harvest break, which we've always had. But I just want to ask teachers, how does that affect when they go to school for 2-3 weeks, take 2 weeks off, especially the elementary and junior high, because none of them really work.
My kids have always worked since they turned 8.
Okay, well, she's
That
a
would be
potato
fun.
farmer.
I'm not a potato farmer.
And so, but the majority don't, like the elementary kids, junior high. How does that affect when they come back, what have we lost? That's kind of what I'm kind of curious. From a teacher's, not from a parent's, but from a teacher's standpoint.
Just spend 1 or 2 days to get them back into routines and schedules. And I don't think they lose a lot, because a lot of that first 2 or 3 weeks we're reviewing or focusing on schedules and procedures and how we want things done. I also, if they wanted to have the junior high and elementary come to school during those 2 weeks, it wouldn't matter to me.
Well, that doesn't work for the busing, does it? Well, and they've already.
That makes it difficult with contracts
Yeah.
with teachers, because where do you split that off? Creates an issue with families. So. Emily.
Sorry, I have another question. So Fridays, they're not here for school. Liz kind of brought up like practices. Are they, how many of staff is coming that day? Are they really going to have the savings of not being here because they're going to have to drive for practice anyway? Has that been looked at? And I think Christy brought up a great point of finding some creative ways. Maybe it's not the example she brought exactly, but has that been looked into of some other creative ways that we can help with the gas prices if that is the motivation?
I'll start with the second one. The other ways that really is grants, if possible. I really don't know of any. The grants that I can think of would be more of a something to provide an after school, like the 20th Century Grant really is the one that fits rural school districts. There's really nothing immediate that can make a change, make a difference, except this. This would be the proposal with it. But to speak on the athletics, it's always hard to come and say, this here is going to impact athletics. It can't even come into the conversation. People are going to play athletics. This doesn't apply to them.
They already have to drive extra anyways for practices.
It's something that, but the people that we're looking at, it's not always the coaches. Like not every single teacher is a coach.
It seems like you had said that there was quite a big percentage that were, and so that's why I wondered if going to the 4-day was really going to be a benefit for them, if they were going to have to drive out Friday anyway. And I don't have the numbers and I don't know the staff, all the staff personally, so that's why I was asking the question: is it going to be a big enough effect, or are we doing this for like 3 people?
No,
That's
no. It's a
see, I don't even know.
it's a big enough number that it's a concern. It's not just 3, but I'm trying to think. Mr. Hadley's out of town, he'll have to come no matter what because he's athletic director. Trying to think if there's any other coaches. Track season, you have Mr. Gorenschmieder, so the track.
Mr. Gore's not doing track anymore.
Okay.
Packer.
Last year either.
Yep, Packer.
I'm trying to, I'm in front with a question that I wasn't prepared for. I'm gonna jump in.
You're on the spot.
But when I go down the hallway in the high school, most of them aren't coaching. And you look at that. Most of our high school coaches or teachers don't coach, I think,
They do their local.
or are not part of the teaching staff.
Okay.
I have one other question about the Fridays and the blended days. When you brought in those superintendents from those other districts to try to persuade us to go to the 4-day, they talked about they use their Fridays for, like, they'll have a math day or an English day. So why don't we take the blended days off the calendar, put them back to a learning day so that the kids can learn, and then say, okay, on this Friday, we're doing this, or we'll have a Friday for it, instead of taking away our contact days, especially for the elementary, and put them on the Friday.
You know, that resonates really well.
I agree.
And that's why, you know, we talk about, say, again, it goes back to Jimmy's comment of, I would prepare to have this, but honestly, if we were gonna have this discussion later on, you guys all wouldn't be here. You guys wouldn't
I
be here.
would.
You would, you would, and we would.
Because I
talk
think
about-
for the 4-day, and I think that this is, it's kind of been rushed. I think that given even a week more. I'm not-
You think she's
Even
put it
a
right in her
week-
mouth.
A week longer, you would have more people with opinions. And I just think it's interesting, people bring up so many points that haven't been thought of already. Look at all the points that have been brought up that haven't been thought of yet.
Right.
So
I think it's flexible for sure. I think it's too.
And part of it, I can see both sides. That's the part is I like that idea. The more that I think about that, it's a great one, and that fixes that issue on it.
I would like to know about the semester. And if that's a better option, especially for our kids educationally,
So
than putting it into a try.
that would be a semester trimester switch on this right now would not be able to be pulled off before the start of school.
Yeah, I know.
That would.
That's why I'm saying I'd like it to be done right the first
So-
time
so
instead of
one-
trying to.
One thing about that, speaking secondary wise, with the elementary, that doesn't really matter because
Right,
it's a year
right.
long, K through 6, it's gonna be fine. Your junior high is kind of that intermediate before they get to the high school. 9 through 12 is when it really starts, you know, the stakes are higher because it goes toward GPA. With what we've already done, since I've been superintendent, I've had conversations with CTE teachers. Difference between semester and trimester, what's one thing, and what led that discussion was our math and English scores in a trimester. We were, like 2 or 3 years ago, we only had them doing 2 trimesters a year, and that counted as your year of
Right.
English. And so honestly, if we're talking about limiting it, there was no difference 2 years ago when we did the 2 semesters of an English class or a math class for a credit. Compared to right now, what we've done with those 2 subjects is they take it all year long. So we've essentially taken our core classes
Make them semester.
and made them semesters. We're on a trimester really to accommodate the electives to give kids more opportunities. So when you look at that, we're already kind of blending the 2 together. We count our credits as 3 when really it's two classes. It would be simpler on a semester, I think, for your dual credit classes. It would be simpler for connecting to most IDLA classes.
Yeah.
Because it would cut off. I think that's something that we could look at and possibly even have that conversation of, could we make our electives quarter classes instead of trimester classes? And then that would still offer a lot more. That might be a nightmare. I'm just speaking that if we're a semester and we want to keep a lot of electives, we have to have quarter electives. If we're trimesters, and we want to maintain better conversations about the English and the math, that we have to teach those all year long, at least 2 out of the 3 years, or 3 or 4 years out of the, happy to have that. Christy, is it 3 out of the English?
So junior and senior right now,
So English is the junior and
but
senior year.
math is all year from 9 to
The math is for the 3. So that's how we've done that. Kind of balance the difference between it. I don't know if, like I said, we can't do that right now. There's too many things with schedules and everything else with the semesters. I think a semester lends itself better with a 4-day school week, at least from looking at the other districts that have done it. But I would also hate to lose the elective options of having kids move in and out of that. That makes sense. That's what I'm saying. So, yes.
So I just have a couple of concerns, but mine is more education wise, I guess, like Christy. Of the consistency and what they really want you add on just a few more minutes, you know, for each class. So my granddaughter does the Waterford early learning on the computer. And they want them doing it 5 days a week. And if they miss, you know, I don't know how many days, if they see them missing that, they're calling them and saying, what's going on, you know? Because it's part of the grant, but they want them to be consistent in that learning. And it has made a huge difference on her to have that consistent learning. Along with this, you know, along with preschool as well, which has been good. But I just worry about the attention span because even me myself, I have a hard time, you know, after an hour of really focusing and learning what I need to learn. And this is just an activity. So I went to a rodeo this last weekend and it was quite a long rodeo to me. And so I was not like paying attention to the rodeo, but I am a people watcher. But I was mentioning it to my husband, and he said, that is why when I was running ours, I always wanted to make it 2 hours. Try to just cut it there because you start losing. And that's with an activity. So that's all I have to say.
Kendra has an answer.
I just wanted to speak to that academic. There's been not a lot of studies on 4 versus 5 day, but my kids have been in both. And I didn't feel like because we were in 4-day for 9 years with my kids' education. So my oldest that graduated last year, he had 4 years here in the school district where he was in 5-day, and then the rest of his time was in 4-day in the different school districts that we lived in. And I would put any of my children up to any of the children here. And some of my kids have learning disabilities and some really excel in academics. I don't think there's any basis for saying I don't feel like you have sorry, I'm tired. I worked last night. I should maybe plan this out a little better. I'm trying to say that I didn't feel like there's an academic hit versus 4 versus 5 day school district in my own personal family. I have ones that really, really excel and they excel in 4-day and they excel in 5 days. And then I have ones that struggle in 4-day and they struggle in 5-day. I feel like the days of the week that they go to school hasn't impacted how they perform academically. That's all I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
I totally agree with what she said. We've done the 4 and the 5, and I haven't noticed a difference. The difference is I did notice 4-day a week. Monday came around, my kids were ready to go to school. It wasn't like, oh, I'm still so tired. 5-day a week they're still tired. They still have stuff they want to do. And that day off, it gives you a day for your family. It gives you a day to do things, maybe, appointments, things like that. It's so nice. But yeah, like she said, academically, I did not notice. I haven't noticed any difference my kids, like she said, that do well, and kids that struggle, maybe still struggle, but like their, morale, whatever is, the 4-day week was much better for them, like, what do you think, mentally, emotionally, just, they were ready to go Monday, whereas now it's like, when they've done a 5-day, it's just like, they're not, and so I think, you know, if we're thinking about the kids, that should be thought of too, a little bit, so, I don't know.
Thank you.
Well, that's the thing to me is like, we do have quite a few schools in our state that observe a 4-day school week. And I have to presume that we're not the only school that values education. And I really think that if it was like a major disaster, people would be jumping back. Well, Firth did jump back and the community was like, no. And then they went back to the 4-day school week. And so to me, like, I posted this big long diatribe because last time the 4-day school week came up, I didn't say much about it. And I regret that because, and I think that a lot of people that are in favor of the 4-day school week fear expressing their interest in it because people will accuse them of not valuing education. Well, I can tell you, I value education to the extent that I lose sleep over wondering how to help students, but I also be tired. The kids be tired. And we have a tendency to overestimate the importance of, oh, I'm saving these kids. No, their families are saving them. Families are the most important thing to kids. And when they're at school, teachers have an influence, but so do peers, and often not an influence that we appreciate. Like some of the stuff I see and hear, I'm just like, great googly moogly. Our children are surrounded by filth and peer influence, especially misguided peers, can have a heavy influence. I have a son who struggles with developmental delays. School, he wants to go because the kids are there, but I watch him throughout the year. I watch his mental health diminish to the point that he doesn't want to exist anymore, because he spends all day, every day in comparison to other people that can do it. So we're forcing him because I don't want to take him out of school because I know he needs to learn to navigate that. But so every day he spends all day feeling lesser. And I know he's not the only kid, and not only kids with developmental delays experience this. We see a great deal of attrition or absenteeism from students who are struggling. Where do they want to be? Home. I feel like if we give 4 solid days of excellent education, which is what our teachers do at this district, but they're tired too, because it's hard. We have elevated expectations because of Common Core, moving all the stuff from a grade above back down. Kids are tired, teachers are tired, and kids need their families. I want to be around my kids more, and not that I always love what they do with their time, but I would like to be a greater part of the influence in their life than people who I don't know what they're teaching. You don't know what I'm teaching your kid in your classroom too. You might not want them around me as much. I just think that we overestimate our importance as educators in the lives of students, and underestimate the importance of family, and underestimate what they're seeing on the playground, what they're hearing on the bus. We could use 3 days in a row to reset and have that togetherness and experiences that are also educational, just not in like the stuff they're learning in the classroom. It's important. It helps them to be eloquent, critical thinkers, but in the end, much of it, we don't use again. On the weekends, and I know this is weird because, man, I am so passionate about standards-based learning. This last year, we had many, many weeks with 4 days in it. The 5 days started to feel cumbersome. And we have already, before we did that unique schedule, Fridays, I just knew, well, I guess it'll be interesting to see how many kids show up today. Sometimes they're leaving early for sporting events. Sometimes they're leaving for appointments all week long.
Friday gives you a business day where people can take care of that. Now, it doesn't always work out that way. I have never, ever, ever, ever come in contact with a person who's currently living in a 4-day school week district that says, oh, we hate it. In fact, it's exactly the opposite. We love it. I can't believe we didn't go sooner. I will never go back. That's what you hear. So we are prioritizing fear of, oh, but what if, over people who've actually experienced both and had good academic results in both, but a happier, a greater sense of joy, more positive mental health. And so to me, it's like, they did a survey of the staff, they did a survey of the community, and the majority was saying, yes, we want this. And people are asking all the time, why can't we do that? Why can't we do that? And they're catching it, so they're responding. But then at these meetings, the people who show up are people who are opposed to it for good reasons. But if so many people have switched and enjoy it so much that even the haters stop hating and decided, oh, I like this too. You know, Karen Pincock, she was there at Clark County, and she was a reading specialist and was like, no, don't do this. And within like a month, she was like, this is awesome. And so we all have those stories. We all know people from these districts. This is the third time in a decade that we've looked at this because so many of the people want it. And so I don't think it's going to go away until we try it. And I trust our staff, our administration, but right now it's not just tons of people want it. There could be advantages, there could be disadvantages. Most districts that go there, stay there. We have 4-day work week jobs that exist in the real world, honestly. And so I don't think it's unrealistic to prepare students for that. If you're saying your child on chemo came and did a full day kindergarten experience, driving from Hamer to Howe and Howe to Hamer.
Yep. And waiting for her older siblings from Arco.
That's good enough for me. When we see time and time again, people going to the longer, we're nervous, we're fearing, we're worried. I trust that our educators are going to make it work. I think that our students will be like, okay, 4 days I can do this. I'm not going to pretend to be sick any of the days this weekend. I'm just going to go. I think that some students who do struggle would appreciate an additional day. As an educator, I would, especially an English teacher, I would appreciate a different day to provide better feedback quicker, which is really hard to do as an English educator, because even when you're at school, you're always being interrupted by teachers, parents, students, administrators. It's hard to just sit down and roll. It's true. I roll straight through. I think that I would grade faster sitting in an easy chair in my house with a plate of bonbons sitting next to me. I think that I could commit to that and that it would probably be helpful. I just think for whatever reason, and it's a myriad, these districts that are going there are staying there. And if there was an education crisis, I gotta feel like someone would be putting a stop to it. And so it's not how long, it's how we use the how long.
Jimmy kind of spoke to this when she said the kids are waiting all day and then just doing one day and doing all of their work.
Yeah.
I mean, she said that to the fight when on the blended day.
Well, it was one class.
Okay,
That was one class.
Well, but we saw, I was thinking when you're saying that, oh yeah, I can think of those students who are like, it's so nice to come. Just have you help me do all my work on this day.
On that one
So
day.
that probably does happen. Like, but I have talked to multiple students from other districts who've said, I really appreciated that extra day to work on homework when I wasn't distracted by like, oh, that cute boy over there, or, you know, they were doing it in the comfort and of their own and safety of their own home. And I feel like too, like students that don't do extracurricular activities, they can pursue job opportunities and make some money and practice workplace. Paraprofessionals who, out of the kindness of their heart, come and help students and teachers, but are making diddly squat. If they wish to pursue, like if they're in a situation where they're trying to provide for a family, they could potentially pursue additional work opportunities on the weekend. The biggest thing to me is the mental health of students, including and especially students who struggle and for whom school is not a joy, and there's a lot of them. Like school is important, but it's not more important than family, more important than work, more important than a diversity of interests. And because it's working for so many people that more and more are fun. And we do have to take into consideration, a lot of teachers want this, like, and have wanted it since way before this current economic crisis. I do think it will help not just teachers, but also families, but in more ways than just money savings. I've always been in favor of it. I just haven't spoken out because sometimes there is, like, people are afraid to speak out if they're in favor because they're like, oh, you think I'm a horrible teacher and that I don't value education. I do value it. I think we'll have to get more creative and more focused, but we can do it. And kids are spazzy. We got to think of better ways to involve their whole brain when we're teaching them. And so that's just my 2 bits. I guess that was more like 20 bits, sorry. Okay, that's more than 2. That's how I feel. I feel like we can do this. We can't be like, all these other districts can't be more capable than us. You know, I just feel like, in fact, I would argue that we're more capable than they are. I think our test scores will go up. That one of the past counselors in Malad said, we didn't expect our test scores to go up, but they did, but it was probably because people felt better and they came to school. They didn't miss school as much. And so I think that could possibly happen. What if? We won't know until we try.
Amen.
So for the last, I guess, 2 years, we started school around 8:10, I think. And going earlier and staying later, I think will actually diminish people's mental health because a teenager's brain doesn't actually start working until at least 9 o'clock. And if we're going, if that, yeah. And if we're starting an hour earlier, that's just like basically wake up time. The students aren't going to learn anything, and we're staying later. We're tired, and if you have extracurricular activities, like you're going to get home even later and be even more tired. So even with a 4-hour week, you're still not going to be able to catch up over the weekend because you still do things.
Thank you.
You know, when this came out, I feel like I've been the bad guy for 15, 20 years of this. And we shouldn't feel that way. And so I just told my husband, I'm like, you know what, you work half days. I'm like, switch it to Friday and we'll go play. Like I'm tired of fighting it. And that word that came out of my mouth sat with me, so I couldn't even sleep the next night. Or that night. And I just thought, I just said I'm gonna go play, and worked 25 years here in this district. And, you know, I've presented over and over again, and they have the things that the smaller schools are the ones that are going to this. So when we say, you know, these other schools can't be wrong, nobody's stopping them, but it's the smaller schools. And now we can say, well, yeah, but Blackfoot just jumped on the bandwagon and Chile jumped on the bandwagon. And is Ruby down with 4 Fridays a week? I don't know that.
Isn't it
No,
4
it's a
day?
one day.
No,
They have
no,
one
no,
Fridays.
Well,
Okay,
But they require more.
which again, you know, I people have said this was a great compromise, what we had. But you know, you get tired of fighting, and I wasn't gonna say anything, and I wasn't gonna come. And this idea that, you know, if you really think about it, we're asking 166 days for kids to come and get educated. That means you have 200 plus days to have your kids in your homes. And we don't even keep them all day. So I struggle with that argument that, you know, I think of our founding fathers and history and the importance of education and the lack that, you know, people that we're gonna forget. And you know, people say, well, you're just afraid of change, or you're old fashioned, or and you know, most of the people that are in here that are arguing it, we're on a 5-day week. And it scares me when, I mean, I've done a lot of college, and the education I got here, I was a little bit behind, but the things that I learned from here made it so I could finish. And I don't think we've looked at, are these rates from these school districts, like, you know, at the high school level, we're sending them out into the world. I'm watching my own son do that. And it's scary to me of, are we preparing them enough to compete in a world that, yeah, you know what, my brother can work from home, and since COVID he has, but my brother has a degree, he has an MBA, he has, so his choice options are awesome. I had 2 cousins come and say, if you're not working from home right now, you're not doing it right. There's cybersecurity there. And when our best schools in Idaho go to the 4-day, then I think we should question it and say, yeah, maybe it is working, but they're small rural schools that are going to it because our state will not provide enough funding to maintain them, and shame on them because they have billions of dollars in reserve. And that's what makes me sad, is we're only asking 166 days to educate kids. And we're using the 4-day as a scapegoat for mental health and bullying. Why aren't we addressing those instead of bringing up the 4-day week? And I feel like we are. We've brought in counseling, we've brought in, you know, helps to, and I think we're addressing those. But when we keep saying that all those are going to be solved by going to a 4-day week, I don't know. I maybe I'm a traditional. Well, I know I'm a traditionalist, and I'll have a lot of joy in my own personal life, but that's where I get really sad. Is that's not what I signed up for. I signed up to educate kids, and I cannot lightly go and say I'm going to go play on Friday now because I've been given 21 days when I already just came off of a 3-month summer vacation, and like that scares me. And it scares me that the attitude that we have is the people who are advocating for it have good homes, have parents who are going to take their kids and give them these extra opportunities. And that scares me that we aren't considering homes that don't. And I don't know, I'm just struggling at letting go of it, but the fight is starting to leave. And so I was really happy that there are people who do still care that what we're doing is good. That 166 days that we're asking of your kids is not that much, because my students are leaving here so prepared, I think the majority of them, to go and make it in this hard world. And if they can find, like my brother's job, a 4-day week, a 4-day work week, work from home, travel all over the world, plan vacations for your kids multiple times during the year, that's what I want from them. And I can't lightly say that this less education is going to get them there. And until we start looking at that data, our personal wants and desires should not be what makes this drive to a 4-day week. And that's where I struggle. And, you know, after this, I guess I'm just kind of done. I have 7 more years. I've fought it for 25. I would love for people to really realize what we are giving up, because we are an awesome school district. And I want to be one of the 2A school districts that said, through all of this, we didn't choose our personal wants or likes or desires. We chose education. And I'm not saying those that want a 4-day week don't believe in education or don't value it. Maybe they value it in a different way than I do. I'm trying to see that perspective, but I just can't help but see that there's going to be something lost when we do it. It's not going to change my job. It's not going to change my love for it. It's not going to change how I approach my kids. But it's really sad to me that because I've never heard anybody come and tell me all the wonderful educational benefits of a 4-day week. It's that I love it. Of course I would love it. You know, there were those weeks that we had those blended days or whatever, there was a sigh of relief, but that's not what I signed on for as a teacher. That's my profession. And I just feel like it's an attack at it of saying that we're not doing what we're doing. And all of you have been through a 5-day school week. And I just don't see why you would want less for your kids. And it scares me because it's all personally motivated. And it scares me. And it scares me that it came out of my mouth when I told my husband, rearrange your schedule and we'll go play. We'll go have fun. I'm tired of fighting it. And that scares me because we can do that. And not a lot of other kids can.
I'm going to take a moment just for a second. Just at the beginning of the meeting, I mentioned, thank you, Christy. I know you're passionate about it. I know you know, from your words, fighting for what you feel is right. And that's where this can get dangerous a little bit in a meeting like this, because we have 2 different passions. On one hand, somebody that says, I like a 4-day school week. The other person is going to say, well, you don't value education. You know, and somebody could interpret what you're saying is that's the only way that education can be valued. And and that's a hard thing about this, if a decision is made where the school board wants to go to this, and there's a majority of people that want to do that, we're left with the, what do we do now? And that's gonna be the one way or another, or the school board says, let's stick with what we have right here. But then we could reconvene this same group and we could tear this apart too. And say, well, the blended days, we hated them, but you've got so many more on this one. You know, it's one of the things that we could just continue to tear apart. Eventually, we're gonna have to just buckle down and say, what is it? Where are we going with? And I know there's lots of opinions, both sides. I don't think anybody here came not knowing what they wanted to do. And I don't think there's anybody here going, I left this and I changed my mind. I really don't. I think people are already set where they're at. What's gonna have to happen is we have to focus on the things that can make a difference. The things that I'm hearing from this meeting today is, you know what, the blended days are probably the biggest issue right now with this proposal. Coming from this group. If that's the case, let's relook at that. I know that you're saying, well, why do it now? Why can't we wait till later? We can go right back into the same argument. It's back and forth going where we're at. This has not been a waste of time. This has not been a waste of time. It's been good and it allows you to get your voice out.
But it's allowing us to get our voice out to who? Because the school board's the one that makes the decision, and we're just talking to you who doesn't have the decision to
And
make.
ultimately, I'll share that with the school board. But last time I shared with the school board, I went off of data that clearly showed that more people wanted a 4-day and they didn't do it. I don't know what they're gonna do. And whether or not, and maybe they went off of what they felt was best. That's how it goes. We don't have control over, like as human beings, we want control, dang it. We want to be in charge and we want to be able to say it how it is and tell people where to go and how to get there. My way is the right way to do it. We have, I don't know, 30 different people in here that have different sets of when I say values or different things, some are similar. But Liz, you're absolutely right. We're getting it out, but at least you're doing something.
We're just making each other mad and be like, oh, yeah.
Well, I don't know if we're really, that's your choice. That's your choice on how you want to look at that. But whether you agree with somebody that's like, everybody here cares. Everybody here cares. And that's the part where we have to choose when we live in a community where we come from different backgrounds, we come from different belief systems, we come from different races and cultures. We have to realize that maybe I am really passionate about this and I don't like what we're doing, but we can continue to do it one way or another, whichever way it goes. We have to realize and give the other person the benefit of the doubt that everybody here is trying to do what they feel is best. And really when it comes down to it, we start with our home situation and we start to build out with that. I'm going to return back to what I started with. I'm trying to see it from up here. I'm trying to recognize that I have teachers from all over, that I have families. Like that's why it was brought up for a discussion. I asked the school board that. I couldn't pretend like I didn't see any economic issues impacting the teachers. And the school board members are the ones that wanted to put it on a work meeting, not me. Not every single one of them. Some of the school board members was like, I don't want to touch that. We shouldn't be doing that. It's that group of people, and that's what's going to happen tomorrow. Like, if you're going to say the school board just does what Shane says, we know that's not the truth. Look at the last vote on this. I'm hoping that with as much information that I can provide by the superintendent, that it guides at least the information, that we're making as much stuff. So I don't know. Maybe we're going to all leave here going, oh, this was awful, you know. But I hope it doesn't. Like, you can't have, Brene Brown calls it a rumble. And a rumble is being open. There's things that I'm seeing differently from being in here. My mind has been changed on certain things from being in here. And whether that aligns with what your personal hope and goal is, I don't know. But I think we could go on to more questions with this, or we could probably debate this for a long, long time. But my hope was, I hope we accomplished that we had a chance to come, that I had a chance to explain the why behind it, the why it feels rushed. It is rushed. I don't love that part about it. If it is going to change to provide relief, this is the only time that this could happen. And whether we have 6 months to talk about it or a week to talk about it, we still have, how many years? 15 years you've been fighting against this, Christy? We've had 15 years of these discussions going on back and forth.
I think Kevin's, they've always said no.
And that's up to the
My
board.
personal opinion.
That's a personal opinion, and not everybody shares that in here.
I believe that.
So we need to email the board our opinion.
The board's the one that will make the decisions on this, and I hope, don't take this as a time to like, let's really get in and after them. Let's get after those board members, and you know what? They are hearing both sides right now. They're hearing both sides. These are individuals who volunteer their time. It is a very thankless job. From the outside looking in, it's really easy to say they're all making mistakes. It's like, you know, it's easy to do that as a parent looking at a teacher to say, why is that teacher always doing that in the class? It's easy for the teachers to say, why is the principal always doing that? It's easy for the principal to say, why is the superintendent the way he is? It just, one of the things we have to be generous to people knowing that they're trying the best. Our school board members have a tough decision tomorrow.
And they care about education despite what some people are texting them, which I think is despicable.
Well, that's one of the things is those, Christy, you say that one of the reasons why you don't want to move to a 4-day is because you care about education. We have other people who are educators who also say, I think it can help. It's you know, and that can come across to somebody can interpret that. Our school board members do care about education. They might see it differently than what you do, but that doesn't take away the fact that they don't care. And they do have a hard decision tomorrow. And honestly, I really don't know which way it's gonna go.
I don't know how to rephrase that so it doesn't sound so awful.
Yeah.
Because it does sound awful, and I'm not trying to make it sound that way.
Which I'm glad you clarified. I don't think you are either. And I think part of it is when we have those conversations, I can't be offended by you saying that.
I mean,
I have to
you
choose
could
not
look
to
at,
be
like,
offended by that.
'cause, I mean, we've seen it, the studies of like a school schedule doesn't affect kids' learning, but teacher contact does. And so Hattie's studies were not meant to argue one certain thing. They looked at a wide variety of things and just said, here's some data on it. It wasn't meant to, but he said, here's some that are really, really high.
Yeah.
And that will be helpful. And so to me, teacher contact time is a schedule. And so and so you can argue all of that. And I don't want to say they don't, but I guess I just struggle with people arguing it. I really wish they would ask themselves the personal question of, are we considering all groups? If you look around this room, a majority group or a large portion of a group in our school is not here represented. I don't know that we've ever asked how they felt. And I don't know that they have, I guess I just, I think of that and, I have a kid that struggles. And to me, consistency is so important. And the older she gets, the more I feel like this lapse in being at school and getting that repetition she needs. I did summer school with her this year. So she's been doing some classes at home because it's important for her to keep doing that. So we can have different views, but I think as community and educators, we have to look at our personal motives behind it. Because I've told people personally who wouldn't love this. So of course community is going to say, we love it, but what sacrifices do we make to keep education quality? And again, maybe a 4-day, we don't lose it. And I guess it scares me if we go. So yes, there is fear because something will be lost, but what will be gained? And maybe that's more joy in our homes and all of that. But what are we sacrificing? There's always going to be something that's lost. And I guess that's why I say what I say, not trying to insult other people who believe differently.
Well, I'm wondering if we've gone for 2 hours. Like I said, we can go back and forth and we're not the ones voting. Nobody here is the one voting. And so But I am the one that does take the information, and when the board needs to have things to look at, the board can come and say, Shane, could you change this? They can do all of that also on the calendar. When I put together the action item is for them to start with and look at. They can, it's one of those things, if it's been made by man, it could be changed by man. It's not scripture, but it's true. And so those are one of the things that can always be looked at. But again, thank you for your time. Thank you for those that were listening at home with popcorn, with their feet kicked back. And I appreciate
by the recliner.
bonbons with the recliner. But thank you, community, for coming and having what Brene Brown calls a real rumble. Really, this has been good. I've learned things. I've learned things. I see things that I will adjust before we get to the meeting tomorrow. And I hope we can continue to be courteous and nice as we're passionate about this. And at the end of the day tomorrow, after the school board makes their decision, we're 100% on board going forward with whatever they do. That's how it's going to be. And I hope that if it's on the side that you're not, that we look at to say, how can it be a win-win? What do I do now? And that really is going to be able to model to all of our kids. And this is real life. And sometimes we get things exactly how we want it. Sometimes we don't. Most of the times we don't. And that's how it is. And that's why I think sometimes we get frustrated because we always want it going our way. But again, thank you for coming. Carrie, I'll let you sign off on that and we'll be able to close